I think there's a prospect to get to a new all-time high or 100,000 before the April halving, and then, wait for the halving cycle to do its thing and see some further appreciation from there into later 2024 or 2025. And I mean, there were a number of metrics that are unusual about the last couple of years, apart from the factors that caused it, but just.
Hey guys, welcome back to Everyday Finance. In this video, Adam Back discuss about Bitcoin. According to Adam Back, people's concerns around self-custody and keeping your own keys, operating a standalone complete node, acquiring such skill because it provides you with the burr, such a resilient nature. And it goes without saying that some individuals are plainly holding their Bitcoin holdings on an exchange or in a custodian, similar to one for an ETF that is located elsewhere in the world, won't have that property. As you are well aware, therefore, if you are connected in any way engaging in political activism or experiencing circumstances where the Canadian government dislikes you that ended up costing the same as giving money to Canadian truckers who were demonstrating, and they basically people's bank accounts in advance, and Adam Back believe that people were rather taken aback to see it in a substantial democratic nation. So Adam Back believe you should keep it in mind. Keep in mind that an ETF for Bitcoin, a bank account, or a share portfolio has that kind of risk attached to it. Yet simultaneously, there's obviously difficult for you to know the typical person who might be a little older, technically advanced, or simply aware of the backup danger. And lots of things Adam Back discuss, so please watch the video to end and share, subscribe our channel Everyday Finance. Thanks.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think some of the traditional conservative, long-term fund management strategies, like the 60-40 portfolio with 40% bonds, are struggling, right? That was the safer component of it, and it turned out to be the worst component of it, at least for the moment. So I think, it's a potential opening for them to rethink that kind of rule of thumb strategy and add some Bitcoin allocation as a kind of long-term store of value, right? So with a growth story. So I mean, gold, of course, has kind of sometimes a small allocation in portfolios, but it's just primarily as a hedge, but doesn't really tend to grow, whereas Bitcoin is still early in the adoption phase. So I think there's more adoption upside ahead of us.
Adam Back believed that based on earlier cycle metrics. Adam Back had anticipated that the price of Bitcoin would be perhaps $100,000 last year, but all of those obstacles felt like a setback. And Adam Back believed that you are aware of the market's ignorance of new technologies, such as Bitcoin, occasionally very well. So you know an asset that ought to be perceived as a protective measure against some of those dangers. Yet the risks themselves caused harm since individuals are misjudging it correctly anyway. In light of those kinds of hazards are, in a sense, taken on board and adjusted for, and we have some favorable news cycle for a few months. There may be a prospect to follow up on where it may have been otherwise, perhaps even before the herring in April of next year. And then, of course, the conventional belief holds that following the herring, your price increases perhaps 9 months to 18 months later, and statistically speaking, that is what has occurred in the past. But Adam Back believed that both are possible, however. Since Bitcoin is so unpredictable, we'll see what actually transpires. But Adam Back think it's realistic to assume that you know an ETF will be positioned, ETFs will be approved. Probably more than one, as they all appear to be equally legitimate applications from reliable sources, and that information alone might let you know move the needle, as that will most likely occur prior to the halve. Let's back to the Adam Back interview.
As more money flows into Bitcoin and the price is higher, it takes a larger scale of ongoing investment to push the price further. But contrary to people's kind of intuition, it doesn't, if there are, a certain number of coins being produced every day, it doesn't mean that the price of those coins is literally the amount of money that has to flow in to cause the price to go up, because it's all based on the margin, right? So the price is the equilibrium in the market, and a lot of coins are cold stored. So, $1 million in is probably going to push the, say a bigger number, like $1 billion of new capital coming in is probably going to do a lot more to the market cap than add $1 billion to it, right? So I think that the current market is a bit unusual, like it was held back by the last couple of years of events. So all the macro stuff we talked about, the COVID, supply chain, geopolitical issues going on, and all the money printing, and then some in-sector drama, the DeFi failures, the FTX, which is resolved now. So perhaps that's a chapter that can put behind us, that, the SBF has been found guilty. And so I think that based on previous cycles, metrics, I would have expected the Bitcoin price to be, maybe $100,000 last year already. But all those headwinds perceptually set it back. And I think that, the market doesn't understand the new technology like Bitcoin very well at times. And so, an asset that should actually be viewed as a hedge against some of those risks was actually hurt by the risks because people are misperceiving it, right? So anyway, so as those sort of risks are sort of taken on board and adapted for, and we have a bit of positive news cycle for some months, I think there's a prospect to get back to where we would otherwise have been, potentially even before the halving next April. And then, of course, the typical wisdom is that you get a price appreciation after the halving, maybe 9 months to 18 months afterwards. And that's what's happened statistically in the past. But I think potentially both could happen. But, Bitcoin is volatile and does its own thing. So we'll see what actually happens. But certainly, there's a reasonable expectation to my mind that, an ETF will a spot ETF will get approved. Well, probably multiple of them, right? Because they're all seems to be equally valid applications and from credible providers. And that in itself could, move the needle. That's probably going to happen before the halving. Yeah. So I think it could, we could get a first stage recovery. I mean, of course, Bitcoin is already up over 100% this year, right? It's
right.
It closed December 2022 at around 15,500, and now we're around 34, 35. So it's already more than 2 times up. But I think there's a prospect to get to a new all-time high or 100,000 for the April halving, and then, wait for the halving cycle to do its thing and see some further appreciation from there into later 2024 or 2025. And I mean, there were a number of metrics that are unusual about the last couple of years, apart from the factors that caused it, but just the the financial metrics people construct. So one is the 200-week moving average, exponential moving average, which historically the price had never fallen below that, and it dipped below it, a couple of times during the COVID period, right? Which I think to me showed that, these external factors had impacted Bitcoin, maybe unreasonably in a way that didn't make sense ultimately once it's shaken out in the market.
Adam back as of current. Now Bitcoin has increased by over 100% this year. It closed in December 2022 at roughly 15,000, and as of right now, we're at about 34, 35, so it's already increased by more than twice. But Adam back believes there's a possibility to reach a fresh peak of 100,000 for the April Hing, after which you wait for the Hing cycle to finish its course and observe additional precession until late 2024 or 2025. And by the way, there were other measures that are peculiar about the aside from the underlying causes. The last few years have only seen a change in the financial measurements. One that people create is the exponential moving average of 200 weeks average, below which, historically, the price had never dropped, and it dropped below it a few times throughout this COVID period, which Adam back believes shown that you are aware of these outside variables had an effect on Bitcoin. If you learned something from this video, then please like this video and subscribe our channel Everyday Finance, and we will meet in next video. Thanks.